Hey everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And we're joined on this week's episode with Peg Alloy. She's a film critic with the Boston Phoenix, and she also writes a blog for the Albany Times-Union website.
Hello.
And excited to talk about, what are we going to do? We're going to do
Biutiful, the Rite,
Biutiful.
And you and I can do the Mechanic. Peg, skip that one.
And then we're going to do our picks of the week.
Yep.
So let's start with the Rite. The Rite to start with the Rite.
As our guest, let's have Peg give a synopsis.
Well, those are typically hard to do, so I
We usually start yakking in like 20 minutes. We go, we should tell people what it's about. So
it's based on a true story, as they say, inspired by true events. It's based on a book called The Rite, The Making of an Exorcist by Matt Baglio, and it's about Father Gary Thomas, who is an actual exorcist who lives in California. And coincidentally, I actually just interviewed Father Thomas this past weekend. We spoke for about an hour. I was expecting maybe 15 minutes, and he just kept talking, and it was a really interesting conversation. But essentially, the way the film portrays it, I think it takes some liberty with his story, but the film portrays a young man, played by Colin O'Donoghue, he goes into the seminary essentially because his father, who runs a family funeral business, his father's played by Rutger Hauer, and he's actually wonderful. And you don't know it's Rutger Hauer for a while. And
I didn't.
I kept looking for Rutger Hauer, and I thought, he's going to be an old exorcist in Italy, but no, he was the dad. So this kid doesn't want to run the funeral home, and you get this sense there's a little tension with the dad. So he in his family, you can either be a priest or a mortician. He decides to go to the seminary, and then basically with the plan, he's going to quit in 4 years, but won't. And then he's there, and he kind of lets it slip to the father superior or whoever that he's going to do this. And the father, who I don't remember the actor's name, he's the guy that was in Capote.
He was also
not Capote, but the other one. He also played Dick Cheney, he played Karl Rove in W.
Right. Toby Jones.
Thank you.
Jones, yeah.
So he sort of says, well, if you decide to leave, we could always settle you with the same amount of student debt that you would have had if you'd gone to college. We could do that if you decide not to go. So there's this, and then this strange accident occurs, and in this accident, I won't give it away, but the young man is sort of realizes that maybe his problem with going on to become a priest is something he should think a bit more about. And then this seemingly out of nowhere, the Father Superior says, there's this course in exorcism going on in Rome right now, and I think you should go. Oh, student that has no interest in being a priest any longer, So,
it's not just like regular exorcism. They're doing like deep,
old school
secret
exorcism. So he goes to Rome, and he starts taking a course with Kieran Hines, and then Kieran Hines somehow sees something in this. There's all this sort of like, we see something in you that you don't see in yourself, nor does anyone in the audience see it either. But we know it's there. And then he sends him to study with Anthony Hopkins, who is an old school Welsh cleric who's been living in Rome for some time. And he follows Anthony around. There's one case study. There's one case that's happening. There's this girl who's possessed, and it goes on from there. And that's basically the story, I would say.
It's like this. He's having a spiritual. What's the word I'm looking for?
Crisis of faith.
Crisis of faith.
Sort of.
The kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what the plot says, but did you ever get the feeling that he was having one? I got almost no emotion from this guy at all.
I think it's a crisis of career. I don't think
Should I be an actor? Should I really? Do I want to be an actor? I'll be in this film, but am I an actor?
I agree with you, John. I think that it wasn't very well cast. He was a good-looking young guy, but I wasn't getting a lot from him.
I don't even recall having ever seen him before, which I thought actually worked in terms of my believing the character, not having seen him before. But his crisis of faith was like, we all knew that there was going to be, we were expecting something.
Yeah.
Like I think they say at one point, or Anthony Hopkins says, well, what were you expecting? Head twisting around or
right.
pea soup?
Head spinning in pea soup.
Not to say that doesn't happen in some form.
Oh, that was an interesting thing too. But some of the little sort of supernaturally things that happen, and it's not really a horror film. It's sort of being billed as one, and if you watch the trailers, they're trying to make it seem like a horror film because of course you have to sell it. You can't sell in a world where you can't sell it as a crisis of faith movie. You have to sell it as a horror story. But Father Thomas said, I didn't actually see any of those things happen, but I knew a guy that knew a guy that saw it happen. So
and it isn't exceptional. It's like standard. It's like a step-by-step, this is a by-the-book movie.
Oh, yeah.
Without anything exceptional. Like, I'd like to say Anthony Hopkins' performance was...
Now, I thought he was terrific. I thought the last couple things I've seen him in, I mean, Wolfman, his accent was all over the place. He was kind of staring off into space. I thought he was just not really there.
He's really good at playing psychos.
He was a little more focused in this one, and I felt like he was having a good time, and I liked the humor of the character.
That's the only part of this movie I liked was there's this, like, I don't know, maybe a 10-minute chunk where they're locked in the room. It's the young priest, the anonymous Chiquita, and
Rosario,
Hopkins, and Hopkins lets it loose for like 10 minutes, a complete scenery chew.
I knew you were going to say scenery chew.
I have to, because does he leave a piece untasted? It's just like you hear Hannibal Lecter, you hear everything, every character he's done, he does different actions, but there's this glint in his eye that looks like he's having a hell of a time doing it.
That's kind of, I think, what like an essence to Anthony Hopkins is when he's playing something devious. He's like so welled up with happiness in playing this deviant character that it's coming out of him.
Yeah, you can
like
feel
he's beaming his evil happiness. Is just
and he found the perversity in this character, and I don't think that was an easy thing to do. There was a perverseness to how, I don't mean like perverted.
Well, there's an all-knowing aspect to his character. Like we automatically impose upon him the idea that he knows exactly what's going on.
Right.
In most movies that he's cast in, and especially this one, like he has the greater knowledge. You're going to get a little bit of it. He's going to piece by piece show the priest to make him believe that there's actually
and yet,
a devil.
Interestingly, in the film, the exorcism, things backfire, and he becomes a victim himself. And he also knows what's happening when that happens.
Yeah.
So that was kind of intriguing. That was.
I noticed that was it in the marketing that they said that the byline says that where evil thought it couldn't go or something like that, or
I don't remember that one, but I do remember one trailer where he's reciting the symptoms of possession, and he says the tremor in the hand, and then you see Anthony Hopkins' hand tremoring. So there's a suggestion that this is what's happening to him.
The what's the actor's name again?
Colin O'Donoghue.
Yeah, the
young guy.
The studying priest is coming at it with the idea that this is pathological. This is a psychological problem.
Right.
That this girl is just reacting to the fact that she was raped by her father and now pregnant and just so
just
disturbed by it subliminally that it's all coming out in these like rageful spats. But you do see sort of a transformation, and the thing that they also emphasize this the nails raking, the hands scratching.
Oh my gosh, that was great actually.
Yeah, that'll get you. Visually, it aesthetically it was interesting, but
it had its moments.
Yeah, it had its moments, but it's really tight. It's actually a very small movie.
Yeah.
You're like really zoomed in
kind of a chamber
on the
piece
character,
kind of feeling.
You know?
That is the interesting part was I think is it Kieran Hunt? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
I enjoy him.
He's terrific.
And his classrooms, teaching about, like he's holding seminars on exorcisms for these people. That was the most intriguing to me. I was like, I want to know more about that. Yeah, I know something's going to happen at the end, and we are going to see head spinning.
I had 4 years of Jesuit education. I didn't hear anything about any of this. Went to Loyola Academy, which is a Jesuit high school, and I had no idea that there was.
Maybe you never showed me a sign that this was something.
I had known that like the Jesuits were like the Catholic
they don't even
military
teach
or
it to
something
the
like
Catholics.
that.
Gary Thomas said they don't even teach this in Catholic seminary. You have to go to a special training program to learn the rite of exorcism.
It's all amusing to me. I don't know.
Well, I was
And the Jesuits don't do it, do they? They're not exorcists.
I don't know, but I got the impression from the movie, and I had never. I said to Sarah, my girlfriend, after seeing it, that after all this Jesuit education, I've never seen anything like this. This is not, and people who aren't Catholic or had this kind of education would think that there has been.
Well, isn't the film kind of putting it out that like this is the unseen part of Catholic, the Catholic Church that you don't know about?
It does what movies does. It takes you to where you don't, to some secret place where you don't get to see.
Yeah, some high-tech classroom in the Vatican.
Yeah, but all the publicity around the film too. I mean,
high-tech Vatican.
The publicity around this is basically because it's being written about, and Father Thomas has been interviewed about these Catholic papers and all these websites and stuff, and they're basically saying this is a sort of not underground but an unseen aspect of life in the church today, and that there's supposedly this growing problem of possession and evil, and because we certainly got into this in our talk about
they're going to be like grassroots with it. They're going to train these priests, and then we're going to take them to church.
Well, the Catholic Church has got to do something, because obviously they don't know what else to do. I mean, there's parishes closing right and left, and they're paying out a lot of money in lawsuits, and there's no one that wants to enter the seminary anymore, and obviously...
They make the point in the movie.
Yeah, so...
It's interesting that other movie, The Exorcist, from way back when did that come out?
1973.
73,
yeah.
So I was 13, and we convinced my mom to take us. Because at that time, you remember how strict that was when that movie came out?
You had to have that parent with you.
You had to have the parent with you.
Yeah.
She brought in, her 5 sons who looked nothing alike. It was just my 4 classmates, and we went in and saw it. My mom was devastated by that movie. We were highly entertained, but she was devastated because we're not Catholic, we're Episcopal, so it's like half the ritual, none of the guilt. But exorcism is part of the rites of the Episcopal Church, too. Yeah. And she says, no, that stuff's real. I was like, no, it's not. And she's like, yes, it is.
Well, here, try this on for size. Okay, so you're playing in the whole scenario that The Exorcist is already established. And by the way, Mercedes McCambridge has a much more evil voice than...
Rosario Dawson.
She was really good, though, but nothing beats the...
Wait, Rosario Dawson was the voice?
No, I'm sorry, Rosario was the name of the character. Where did I get Rosario Dawson from? Never mind.
I don't know.
Rosita or something like that.
Yeah, her name's Marie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What The Exorcist does really well is that it established in that movie the reality of the religion by showing the practice of it, the rite of it, by showing the father who's in the seminary or teaching, going through the actual Catholic Mass. And it established this grounded reality. In this movie, there is no... there's no ceremony,
right,
or resuscitation of these passages that make it really real in the context of the movie.
Right.
In fact, that's basically the point.
I think it also, I think because a script like this depends on us having that shorthand already. We've seen it from The Exorcist and other movies, so we know, so they can just, kiss the
It's an assumption that didn't work.
Put it on.
It's an assumption that totally didn't work. And they also make this mistake of putting too much music in the movie. It's just wall-to-wall sound effects and music.
Yeah,
and what makes
too much.
The Exorcist really great is the fact that there are these extended moments of just sounds.
It really holds back,
and Friedkin he emphasizes certain sounds.
Yeah.
Like when the girl is being examined, all the machines, it doesn't overload you like this movie just throws a ton of stuff at you. It's
right,
like
and then
audio.
it had that, Mike Oldfield.
You can't be hit over the head with this
just
kind
that
of
little
stuff.
bit of music. That's why it's so powerful. No one knows how to make a horror film anymore in that regard. This notion that you go to the Blair Witch Project where they have this very much this less is more thing. It's all about suggestion. It's all about, and everyone's trying to find the next new thing, but everyone just goes overboard with music. Now they're even starting like The Last Exorcism as an example. That started out being a sort of a fake documentary conceit, and then they couldn't hold back. They had to put the eerie soundtrack in. It's like, you're not even being true to your form at that point.
The movie didn't breathe. I mean, it didn't. The pacing of the film just didn't pull back. Everybody was, Hopkins had some humor, but they were also like burdened with this job, this existence, and it was just generally depressing.
Well, even the humor, you listen, all the funny lines he has, it's kind of like he says it, and there's no room for a laugh, there's no room for a response. It just kind of hangs there, and the scene continues, and you're like, hey, wait, that was funny.
Yeah, give it a moment.
After the fact.
They also, the film, I mean, if you compare it to The Exorcist, it lacks so much narrative complexity that The Exorcist has because it's so much more artfully done. I mean, first of all, you have Damien Karras, who is experiencing a true crisis of faith, who is dirt poor. He's also a psychologist. He's a built-in skeptic as a priest, and that's such an interesting dichotomy to begin with. You've got the archaeologist / exorcist who's experiencing this stuff halfway around the world, and it's all very just subtle and suggestive. And then of course you have Ellen Burstyn's performance, which is just the most amazing tour de force that builds and builds and builds. And the first 45 minutes of this film, it's a little bit eerie here and there, but it's not a horror film. It's just a character study. And this film, in the Rite, it's because there's that complexity is lacking and that strength of characterization is lacking, so they fill it in with music and camera shots.
Yeah, they really just keep it on you. There's a couple points during the movie. They also make the point that you'll know it's the devil when the devil knows something that only you would know.
Right. Yeah.
So this is brought to the front in The Exorcist, when the devil takes the form of the mother in the bed, when the mother starts talking through
why you do this to me?
Exactly. So his beliefs in the science of this fly out the window. We expect that's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe to some extent it does, but it's infinitesimally effective compared to The Exorcist. At no moment during this film was I afraid or weirded out, or so weirded out that it was really entertaining. It wasn't. What makes The Exorcist fun is that, the screaming demon.
I thought, it was...
Well, I like the quietness of it, like you were saying, that lack of noise.
What you were saying about, the way they piece together horror movies now is like, okay, if a cat suddenly appears in the window, the soundtrack
cranks
up
the
to 11. So
yeah.
you're shocked because it suddenly got so loud. It's got nothing to do with the cat, and that's a lot of the trouble I had with this is that there is no there's no real sense of danger, like you said, or
there's
like,
omens, like the possessed horse and the frog, whatever that.
The frogs, that was kind of interesting, actually.
But
no one wants to give space to an audience to use their own intelligence, their own instincts, and just to receive the sensory experience of a film. And then if something strange or terrifying or supernatural happens, it becomes a shock. It becomes something that puts you off balance.
Right.
But when you're constantly telegraphing that all the way through, you're not. All you can do at that point is ramp up the gore and ramp up the stuff. And that's why you go back to The Exorcist again. That's why Rosemary's Baby. There's not a single horrific or gory thing that happens in that film. It's all about mood, character complexity, and just
good points.
The script.
But also, I would add that they in this movie tried to do everything they could with a PG-13 parameter.
That's what I was just going to ask you. What is this rating?
So there's something else working above them that they have to try to eke around and
make it scary without bloody crucifixes getting inserted into bodily orifices and swearing and pea soup and whatever.
Yeah, there was nothing so visually shocking as that.
Yeah.
But that's basically my point.
The only part that really shocked me is when Anthony Hopkins falls off and hits the kid, and I was just like, that's a little over the top.
Yeah, that
was the only overt act of violence that I thought crossed the border.
The mechanic totally beats this movie to that. And that particular point, one point alone, about taking it where I didn't think it would go, I was like, whoa, okay. I just changed the subject there, but yeah.
But I would, I think this is I'm a fan of this genre, so I would see it anyway. But if I didn't have to review it, I would have waited for video.
Yeah.
I don't think anything, because it's PG, because the commercials look
It's
silly.
not even visually interesting enough to warrant seeing it on a big screen. And that's unfortunate because they're in fucking Rome. Excuse my French, but here, talk about an opportunity for use of setting that could have been really atmospheric. They don't. They might as well just be in New Jersey. There's nothing that identified it as Rome.
I think it's overall still a trite film.
Yeah,
not so impressionable, and in this long, I don't know, over the past couple of years, how many exorcism films have we had? Nothing still stands up. Well, except for, I think you were saying what was God, what's that guy's name? Grindhouse. Always do this.
No.
He said Grindhouse.
That's what you're here for. You're supposed to help me on these things.
What are we talking about?
He likes seeing his head get twisted off in Piranha 3.
Yeah.
That doesn't have anything to do with the exorcism genre of cinema.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name.
Rodriguez?
Torture porn guy.
Oh, Eli Roth.
Eli Roth.
Oh. No, I like watching Eli Roth get killed in Piranha 3.
You said that you liked the first 45 minutes or something of what was his exorcism film, The Last Exorcist or something like that.
Yeah, he just produced that, right?
I'm not even sure I'm getting the title right.
Well, Peg's going to talk about that later, so.
Oh. Am I? What?
Well, I thought that was going to be your pick of the week.
Last Exorcism,
Well, then we'll save it.
We'll save it.
Let's go from something that's very trite to something that's amazingly complex and really good as far as I'm concerned. But I'll be darned if I can give you a quick summation of Biutiful.
Well, that's why I cut and pasted this.
Oh, good.
Beautiful. All right.
That's 5 pages long.
Biutiful is a love story between a father and his children. This is the journey of Uxball, a conflicted man who struggles to reconcile fatherhood, love, spirituality, crime, guilt, and crime, guilt, and mortality amidst the dangerous underworld of modern Barcelona. His livelihood is earned out of bounds. He sacrifices for his children who know no bounds. Like life itself, this is a circular tale that ends where it begins. As fate encircles him and thresholds are crossed, a dim, redemptive road brightens, illuminating the inherent... Oh my God.
Did you write this?
Illuminating the inheritances bestowed upon him from father to child and the parental guiding hand that navigates the corridors, whether bright, bad, or beautiful.
I'm not sure
Do you
that's
get
helping.
the point of it? Well, that's what Roadside Attractions wrote.
Did it take place in Spain? I thought it was Mexico.
No, Barcelona.
Well, it was Barcelona.
All right, then.
Essentially, you find out that this man is dying. He doesn't tell anyone that he's dying.
Right.
But the way they show us is deeply disturbing.
Yeah, you get the sense, and he's also not doing anything about it. There's a possibility, I suppose, he could try to take some treatments or something, but he doesn't. He's so caught up in the things he does. He does all these things to help other people.
Yeah, well,
it's all
basically,
illegal.
Yeah, and instead of doing anything when he finds out he's going to die, all he does is increase his efforts to do more.
Right, because he's running out of time. Yeah.
Right, but in doing that, this film is like just an escapade of tragedies, one after another. That he's trying to make things right before he dies, and he has to leave his children behind.
I think there's so much emphasis on how tragic this film is and how sad
But why is it called
dark
Biutiful?
and bleak. The title
it?
comes from his daughter is doing a school project.
Right.
And she asks him how to spell beautiful, and that's how he spells it because he doesn't know how to spell
Wasn't it his
either.
younger son who, when he?
I thought it was
asked
the daughter,
him,
but
maybe you're right. He
a child who doesn't know how to spell it.
Biutiful is spelled however you want to spell it.
Exactly, that's sort of the...
And he happens to notice this piece of this drawing that his child has taped to the side of the refrigerator while he's in the
That's
apartment.
literally, but why do you think it's called that?
Ironically? Well, I would say that's probably beauty in small things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely this. There, because we focus.
Absolutely.
We focus on how intense and I guess depressing the film can be, but there are moments where his life kind of clicks into place, even if it only lasts for a second. That
Like when he's having dinner with the kids.
Yeah.
Or there seems to be.
Or just when he starts to get his wife has one of her up moods.
A good day,
Yeah, has a good day, and there's something there he rediscovers, or
His wife is bipolar.
yeah,
By the way.
yeah.
Marcial Alvarez, terrific performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, it's so much was going on, like all this, like lots of communication happening, and like three people talking to each other over the phone.
Well, that's what this guy, the director, in
Alejandro González Inarritu.
right, his movies do that. He has cast of dozens in all his movies.
Amores Perros, 21
grams.
21 grams. It's all these. There's like so much, and there's so many dramatic stories going on, and then they. I think in the past he's tried to force them together. This I thought worked a little better, although the story about the Chinese immigrants
Tragic.
is tragic.
I should explain. He's I think the best way to describe how he's making a living is he's dealing in black market goods.
Yeah.
So he's dealing with immigrants who are selling illegal items on the streets in Barcelona, and he's having to pay off the cops in order to keep the cops off the
He
immigrants.
deals with the goods, but as an offshoot of that job, he has to deal with the fact that these goods are made by these illegal employees,
Right.
and he does what he can to improve their living conditions. And we probably shouldn't
Right,
give
the
away what
Chinese.
happens, but by way of trying to help improve the very squalid living conditions of these people, a very, very tragic thing happens, and he, of course, takes that guilt on, and he's sort of like a hamster in a cage, in a wheel.
Yeah.
And he's running out of time, and he's also
Totally.
unable to really make things happen in a good way. So in a way, he's sort of
Without even telling anybody. He's only got a few weeks to live.
and he takes everything on
he's trying to-
himself. He's trying to be this sort of solitary hero. He's like this underground hero of the streets. And one point that's made about this film is that it shows you a side of Barcelona no one's aware of. Because Barcelona, of course, is seen as, with the beautiful Gaudi buildings and the beautiful architecture, and there's all this wonderful, great nightlife and food and music and whatever. And at no time in this film does one really see that jet-setting side of Barcelona, which most people are familiar with.
And there's also another side to Uxbal in that, and it's only really touched upon, I think, in the movie, where he has a spiritual side where
He does.
people
Yeah, that's
hire-
another thing he profits
families
from,
hire
actually.
him help when someone dies.
Oh, right, to speak
The
with the
transition
dead.
of the living to the dead.
Yeah.
And he
So-
somehow
It's like a
communicates
psychopomp.
with them.
Yeah, he's
kind
learning
of like
from,
Matt Damon did
from an older
Hereafter.
woman, and that it's kind of, I don't know if it's something that he learned or a gift he has, but and he only uses it occasionally.
Yeah.
But and he gets paid for it, or the one time he
It
does
makes
it
for some
he can't
weird
take it.
sequences.
Very weird. And it
Where
makes
you're
for-
actually seeing the deceased in the frame with him,
Yeah.
I liked that.
communicating with him, or watching him.
Yeah.
Strangely.
And of course,
really
the film
strangely.
begins with him in a sort of what might be a dream or a vision of him with his dead father or brother.
Right. It's weird. He was orphaned as a kid,
Yeah.
or he never knew his father or something like
Yeah.
that. And so he's trying to also, in these couple of weeks, learn about his father, who was a revolutionary or something like that. And the movie begins in a sort of like dreamlike state in the forest, in the woods, in the snow.
Gorgeous.
But actually, it begins with whispering on the hand.
daughter's hand.
Yeah, it's the daughter
hands,
in the ring.
which is really expressive.
But you don't
Hands are
know it in
always
the
very
beginning. It's just the
expressive.
hand that he's putting a ring on. A child's hand.
Yeah, it could be an older woman because
Yeah.
they're talking about the wedding ring kind of thing.
Right, and,
It's,
then how it got to this country and passing on the ring, which comes up at the end, and so does the scene in the forest comes up at the end. Again, that cyclical thing and that thing you read.
Yeah, it explains.
I thought that was really beautiful the way that
in
that
that
comes
foggy
back.
description. But yeah, it is bookended it's in some ways it's a sweet film. I was hesitant to use the word sweet because there's such, I don't know.
I found it sublime. There was
Morbidity and-
very simple moments, like visually. Like there's one that I remembered, and I think I was sitting next to Ty Burr, and we had. I think he also liked this film quite a bit. He found it bleaker than I did, and I don't think he liked that constant bleakness. We talked about it a bit, but.
Peter called it maudlin.
Yeah, right. Well, we're sitting there, and there's a moment where I think he's just standing on a street corner, and the sun is sort of going down, and there's just this moment where you see like the traffic light change, and some birds fly, and it's just one of these simple moments that they've chosen to capture, and I caught my breath because it was so it wasn't overdone. It was just a stunning, simple moment. You realize this is a moment he can't take for granted because he's running out of moments, but the film chooses to linger on it as well,
Yeah.
and I just. And maybe we were the only two people in the theater at the time that did it, but we both sort of went, and it's something you do not see in cinema very often, and that's one reason I really feel I need to champion this film, because yes, it's bleak, yes, it's depressing, but it's completely plausible, it's completely based in reality, and it confronts feelings and experiences that most people don't necessarily want to deal with on any kind of daily basis, and certainly not when they go to the movies.
Like I've noticed that in Inarritu's films, people have a knowledge of their ending, so they try to make things right by the time they get to that point.
Right.
And here he's trying to build something for his kids,
Right.
or come to some sort of reconciliation with his family, or he's going to leave them behind. They're going to have
Within his very limited means. I
Yeah.
mean, and then he also takes in the other woman, the woman who's a refugee from Nigeria, I want to say, or somewhere.
Yeah.
She's got kids and she's got nowhere to go because her husband is in prison.
Right.
And her husband is in prison partly because of some of his dealings with all the other people that Oxball runs around with, and so he feels this great sense of responsibility because he's chosen. It's really odd. He's sort of chosen to make his milieu this world of danger and illegality, but yet he's trying to do good within it, and it's an underside to life that the vast majority of us, well, certainly middle class Americans, don't ever even think about.
Did he really ever do anything bad? It's like he really always tried to do the right thing, but tragedies beset him for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And maybe it's I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
to go back to the title, I mean, it could possibly mean all things are beautiful, and you don't have to be educated to know that. You don't need to know how to spell beautiful to know that. But at the same time, it's like, well, is beauty really ever possible when you're born? Depending on what you're born into, is there ever a way to get out of squalor, to get out of poverty?
Absolutely. The movie in itself is built as if it's sort of a cage.
Yeah, and even if he didn't have this, death sentence hanging over him,
Which is his way out. That's what's coming.
yeah, it's a bleak existence anyway. Or maybe it's just at times I think it's only just it's like he's not that he's going through a bad patch, but lately everything he touches turns to shit.
Yeah.
You know, but again, there's those moments where when his wife has a good day, or when he has a moment with his son, you know, but they never laugh. You know, a nice moment at dinner is ruined because the son's kicking the chair, or something always
or some
happens.
crisis comes up with his various jobs or whatever he's doing. You know?
Yeah, there's never really any kind of. Again, it's almost. We were talking about the pacing of this.
It stays in a mode.
It does.
Mostly depressing.
It does.
But I think, like, I found the entertainment, and I'm glad this film exists. I found it visually entertaining, but shockingly depressing a couple moments.
And what did you think of Javier Bardem's performance?
I think it's
wonderful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's a real conversation
even for him, it was
between him
wonderful.
and the director, which you really it is. It's like something they built. If you're not interested in this director and how he communicates with his actors, and much of it was improvised. I learned afterward that they had done in many ways. They had filmed. It had taken him 18 months to edit it, and he would go into 40 takes on certain things. I learned this from Elvis Mitchell on The Treatment, who's Inarritu was interviewed. That I can't see that this was actually built to be a vehicle for him to get a Best Actor nomination,
right?
Because it was so. I don't know. I think they just concentrated on doing something personal, and the movie was finished last year for Cannes, and you do what you do with a slow rollout. You don't have a big roadside
and
attractions.
let's face
it's not a huge studio.
This kind of film often doesn't get attention from the Academy. Certainly not for an acting performance. It's almost always tend to go to English language films, and it's a really kudos to the Academy and the other groups that have recognized this performance, because
really
it's amazing.
Appreciated this performance. He's such an incredibly convincing presence.
That's just it. He's one of the few people in film that they can just stay on camera. The camera can just stay on him, and you stare and watch him, and it's like, I'm always thinking, what's he thinking? It's just, there's just always
he looks like he's got
force. He's a very powerful presence on screen.
And despite being extremely handsome and attractive and charming and sexy, like you see in Vicky Cristina Barcelona or what have you, he does not have to be that way. He is not afraid to show ugliness or to be ungraceful or to, and not even from the sort of method sort of standpoint. There's just a reality and a very touching human quality to what he does, and I can't say enough about this performance. I was blown away.
It's really
by it.
visceral.
Yeah.
What was it? In Entertainment Weekly, there was a thing where Julia Roberts held private screening for people with Academy votes because she didn't think it was getting the attention it deserved. So she held it private screening.
Nice?
She did.
Good for her.
Just because of his performance. Yeah. She said, I know how good a performance that is.
Good for her. That's great.
And it's raw. There's just no holding back yet, but it's not showy.
Too bad she didn't do that for Inland Empire, because David Lynch tried to get some attention for that, for Laura Dern's performance, and no one would recognize because nobody does it.
Did anyone really see that all the way through?
I did. I just watched it the other night. It was on Sundance, and I watched it starting at midnight for 3 hours because I just was like, oh my god, I gotta watch it. Oh, it's so good.
I want to say though, it's not like I'm in a hurry to go out and see this again because it's an experience.
Oh yeah, you gotta gear up for it.
Yeah, it's not an easy movie to take.
But I can't wait to see it again. In a way, I'm not going to run, but I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I will admit, though, I have not seen it in the theater, and I'm sure it's much more...
Honestly, I saw it at the screening on it, and I would imagine, obviously we know there's a big difference between those experiences, but I was probably so moved, and probably more so than I would have been if I'd watched my little DVD at home. I'm very glad that I saw it in the theater the first time.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
Beautiful. There we go.
So that's a good way to wrap that one up, and then we'll let's talk about the mechanic.
Guy talk.
We gotta.
I'm gonna go powder my nose,
All right, powder whatever needs powder, and we'll be done by the time you come back.
Do you want to take a break, or
no? My nose is fine.
Okay. Powder break for the mechanic.
All right.
I did actually like this film.
Now, were you a fan of the original? Did you see the?
No, I haven't seen it. I in fact, when you mentioned it last week, that was the first I had heard.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a remake, so I'm not going to come off like I'm all
even though
knowing.
they're the same kind of story, they're really apples and oranges because one's a 72, or Charles Bronson action movie, and this is obviously 10 times as loud and violent and cool.
With a number of filmmaking mistakes.
This?
Yes.
Mechanic?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I'll get into it.
See?
I'll get into it.
But you liked it.
I did enjoy it. I
mistakes
did
didn't
enjoy
ruin
it
it
for
for
what
you.
it did. But it's more like choices the director made. Similar problems that we had with like the A-Team.
No, the A-Team sucked.
Well, it sucked I'll go over a couple of the reasons because those couple of reasons why it sucked are also in the
No,
mechanic.
there was no tank falling out of the sky.
No,
parachute
John.
with the guy shooting.
I'll get in. Let me read the summary here so we can.
All right.
Arthur Bishop is a mechanic. Arthur Bishop, played by Jason Statham, and a lead assassin with a strict code and unique talent for cleanly eliminating targets. It's a job that requires professional perfection and total detachment, and Bishop is the best in the business. But when his mentor and close friend, Harry, played by Donald Sutherland, is murdered, Bishop is anything but detached. His next assignment is self-imposed. He wants all those responsible dead. His mission grows complicated when Harry's son, Steve, played by Ben Foster, approaches him with the same vengeful goal and a determination to learn Bishop's trade. Bishop has always acted alone, but he can't turn his back on Harry's son. A methodical hitman takes an impulsive student deep into his world, and a deadly partnership is born. But while in pursuit of their ultimate mark, deceptions threaten to surface, and those hired to fix problems become problems themselves.
Dun, dun, dun.
Starring Jason Statham, Ben Foster, Donald Sutherland, Tony Goldwyn, Jeff Chase, and Minnie Andon. I don't know who that is. Directed by Simon West, the guy who gave us Tomb Raider and Con Air.
And the
a number
General's
of TV
Daughter.
movies, and The General's Daughter, which was just completely whatever.
All right, so let me hear your problem.
The movie is filmed way too closely. Here we have Jason Statham, who does great action, being filmed in such a way that you're just seeing blurs. You know, I was reading Manola Darks' review of the film in the New York Times, and she totally, encapsulated it for me. She says that Fred Astaire would insist that when he was on screen dancing, you'd always film him, full body, from head to toe. And Jason Statham, with a body like his, you don't let it go to waste. You film it from head to toe, and you get all of the action. And she basically says that this movie, it presents you fragmented bodies, and she called it cinematic dismemberment. When you got someone who's really capable of doing these stunts without close-up shots and editing that just chops everything up into a mishmash. The way you film guys who can't do stunts, aka the A-Team.
Foreman did the same thing with Moulin Rouge.
You don't do that with guys who are capable.
Right.
If you've got the believability, you've got the actors capable of doing it in front of the camera, you do that. You show them from head to toe. Right. So here's a movie, unlike The Transporter, which did show Jason Statham in full frame, going through these action set pieces. Here it's just a blur.
Yeah.
He plays a similar character to The Transporter, where he's very anal retentive. Everything's perfect. He's got this secret lifestyle that pays off in a great house and all the amenities that go with it. Like in here, he's got like just this awesome car, awesome record player, awesome everything. Yeah. And now he's taken on this protege, who is kind of like Manola Dargis. She describes him as an adorable mini-me, completely buzz cut. Straight up, I really did enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
And I was very annoyed by the way it was filmed. It was unnecessarily too close. It didn't, and also wall-to-wall music. It was just a barrage of audio-visual stuff that didn't need to be there. Mm-hmm. They couldn't have gotten away with so much more, and that probably even made it more, profound to me. Were it not for the editing of every 3-4 seconds.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, I now that I know what you're talking about, it was edited way too fast. I think the thing that saved it wasn't so much the action, is that it's Statham and the kid.
Ben Foster.
Ben Foster. They're good together.
They are. They are good together.
They're not buddy, but there's good chemistry between them. They're good together.
Right.
Donald Sutherland was a hoot to see.
There was a girl behind me saying, "Well, if you read this, there is something homoerotic going on there."
You're always sitting next to these women that have these
John,
comments.
No. This is true. She had a point. There is something homoerotic going on in this film.
Where? When?
Okay. This bad guy. he's like, how do I put it? The gay bad guy.
The priest.
No. This is they have a hit. He's one of the guys who is an operative.
Oh, no, I know he is a big guy.
Right. So he'd go to the coffee shop, right? And it has been determined by Jason Statham's character that this guy really loves conversation with younger men, that he likes dogs. Yeah. So in the film, Ben Foster plays to that. He goes pretending to be an unknowing, gay guy going to the coffee shop, starting up a conversation. They end up going back to the house, and the fight that ensues it's like a homoerotic wrestling match.
Wow.
It's not like it's not. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Complete with the sweat and the bodily fluids flying all over. Yes.
What?
Yes.
You were wearing your
close-ups?
homoerotic hat. You were looking for this. I don't know why, but you were looking for this.
And it climaxes. It climaxes in. You can read this into the film,
or you cannot.
No, but you know what? This is I'm kind of dumbfounded because I didn't get it while I was watching it, but after hearing the appraisal afterward, I'm like, you know what? Jeez, the filmmakers might not know what's going on here, but
all right, so if they don't know what's going on, isn't it you reading into it?
Yeah, that's what critics do.
I don't know about that. You're projecting, I think.
Unintentional homoeroticism.
Unintentional.
I've been guilty of that.
It happens. Me too.
But I'm alone when it happens. It's really weird.
And, Ben Foster I've pretty much liked in most stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
Great supporting actor, and he's going to get his due someday. He was terrific in 30 Days of Night, in a small role.
Messenger?
The Messenger,
Yeah, The Messenger. Return to Yuma as the bad guy.
Cool. All right, do you have a DVD pick?
Yeah, let's move on to the picks of the week. So I chose Raging Bull on Blu-ray, which came out a couple of weeks ago, and they retrofitted it, so it includes the original DVD plus the Blu-ray, plus 4 new featurettes. One of them being Scorsese on film, where he talks about all of his influences, and then they have another featurette where they interview young directors like Richard Kelly. The girl did Boys Don't Cry. I'm sorry.
Who directed it?
The director. I can't think. And Neil LaBute, and they talk about how this film has influenced them in their careers and stuff like that. So the extra stuff is actually really good, really good. There's also they have this one piece of it's an interview with Kathy Moriarty on the Tonight Show from 1981 that goes like 6-7 minutes, which actually works really great in the whole like ambiance of the film, because she was interviewed around the time of its release, and you just got this impression of like she is so cast on type.
Yeah.
I mean, she was really right for this role. Yeah. I mean, it was just, and the interview really shows that. So, I mean, I don't know what to think about like retrofitting DVDs, souping them up just for re-release, but Sarah and I watched Raging Bull, and we watched the Thelma Schoonmaker, Martin Scorsese commentary, and we really digged it. Learned a lot.
It's a great movie, too.
It's a film lover's movie. There's so much about loving filmmaking that goes into this movie, and the different ways that they set up the boxing fights and stuff. It's a fun watch. It's a fun watch. So I highly recommend it. I mean, why wouldn't I? I can't say enough about the film. I mean, God knows everybody else has. So yeah, Raging Bull on Blu-ray. Definitely dig it. John, how about you?
I have a.
Oh, I should have said Peck. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I got to be honest. I'm not someone that likes to watch a lot of extras on DVDs because, in my mind, they tend to be kind of contrived these days. Like, we have to do this, so we have something to put on the DVD.
There's actually nothing worse than that. Like featurettes that are basically just marketing. There's a big difference between like the marketing documentary and documentary like Hearts of Darkness.
Well, when the DVD sort of form first came out, the kinds of extras you would get were things that were this sort of incidental, footage or whatever that got made. And now that they'll actually just sit someone down and interview them with a camera, and they tend to be really devoid of anything interesting. But sometimes if you get these making of little featurettes, they can be really fascinating. But generally speaking, I don't tend to do it. But so I actually have a couple of quick picks, and it's for 2 recent releases that I think you should catch if you didn't catch them in the theater. And the first is The Last Exorcism, which came out a couple weeks ago. Really, this is a film that I think cost about $2 million to make and has made at least $21 million, and that's saying something. I think. I don't think it had a huge budget for its publicity either, and it's flawed. It has some deeply flawed aspects to it, but it's essentially this sort of fake documentary conceit, handheld camera and all, where you have this guy who's a Baptist preacher who also does the Eli Roth film.
Okay.
Also does these. He does exorcisms, but not from sort of the Catholic standpoint. He's almost like a traveling carnival mesmerist, clairvoyant preacher, scam artist kind of guy. And he in the film he hooks up with a documentary team to go out and basically expose the charlatanry that is the modern exorcism sort of industry that he's part of. And you get that he's not part of the Catholic Church, and it's an interesting sort of split, but they don't make a big deal out of that. But then, of course, what happens in the film is that he goes to try to prove that he goes to a case he hears about, and he goes to try to prove that no one is ever really possessed or whatever. And of course, this backfires because it turns out it's an actual possession. And then where it goes from there, it's just this amazing over-the-top ending that's just right out of like your worst crazy bacchanalian satanic orgy from the 1970s, and I find that interesting. But my only issue with it is that it tries at one point to try to be a horror film because it starts doing things like weird camera angles and spooky music, and I think that's the problem with like Paranormal Activity as well. They try too hard. Instead of having it just be a found footage thing, they go there. But my other quick pick, but I recommend it because it's one of the most interesting little low-budget horror films to come out in a while in terms of being a really very original premise, I thought.
And it also has great use of babies crying.
And babies crying.
There's this noise of a baby crying.
Oh my God!
And a creepy doll that is like
that
you
was
think
creepy.
it's one of those things that stuck with me after the movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy, that was just freaking me out.
I found it quite disturbing, and there's some really
Yeah.
some good acting in it too. And it's not.
You know who the lead guy was?
I don't recall his name, but I thought I was impressed.
Yeah, it was good
impressed
stuff.
with him. And the young girl was good too. And my other quick pick is something that very few people saw in the theater. I think that Kendall did it for about a week. It's a trilogy of 3 films that were made for British TV that were then released theatrically and meant to be all seen together. And I actually saw them they did the press screening all in one day, all 3 of them. It's called the Red Riding Trilogy. It's based on 3 novels. And it's sort of I've heard people call it a police procedural, and I don't agree. I think it's a very subtle crime thriller. 3 separate directors, Julian Gerald, can't think of the other 2 names, and then some actors are in it throughout, like Sean Bean and Robert Morrissey. Saskia Reeves is in it. Andrew Garfield is absolutely wonderful in it, although he's only in the first film. It basically is set in 1974, I think, and it continues to, I think, 1980 and then 1983, and it's essentially, there's 2 main through lines to the plot. One is that there's a serial killer that's sort of loosely based on the Yorkshire Ripper, so this is based in the north of England, very working class area. It's very atmospheric in terms of location. It's just, you really feel like you're there, and it's very authentic, culturally and everything. And then the other through line of the plot is the fact that there's a very deep, entrenched, layered corruption in the Yorkshire Constabulary, and that there is police cover-up happening at almost every level in terms of these killings, in terms of the detective work going on, and in terms of many other things going on. So there's this wonderful, fantastic story of police corruption and people from within trying to expose it that just can't. And there's a journalist in it who's working with it. It's very layered, and I really have to recommend watching them in order and watching it as a complete series, because it's fascinating the way it unfolds, and it's one of the most entertaining things I've seen in a long time. And it was on my year's 10 best list for this year, but it's so few people saw it that it's not getting a lot of recognition.
Well, I saw the first one, and I'm going to wonder, the cover-up was because they were generally inept, if I recall, or they were also trying to maybe...
Yes, but there was also one of their own, a guy who was sort of involved in both law enforcement and politics, was a suspect in some of the killings, so that was an...
And the story just gets richer and richer as you go on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the way that 3 directors take such different styles. You know.
Yeah. I thought the first one was, in that way, stylistically the strongest. I believe it was filmed on 16 millimeter and then blown up to 35, and it just has an absolutely gorgeous quality to it. But all three of them are, I thought, beautifully directed.
So they're out now.
Yep, it's come out. In fact, I saw it, speaking of how much things cost, I actually saw it on eBay recently for about $15 for a new one, so it's really not even that expensive to get hold of. So, but you do have to kind of look around online. You can get it on Amazon too, but it's out there and you got to get it.
John Black.
All right. Mine is, I guess it was a BBC TV series, but it was on ABC too in 1967, 68. It's called Man in a Suitcase. And it stars a man named Richard Bradford. And he plays, I guess he's an ex-CIA guy, but he's on the outs with the CIA, or he's been fired or something. You know, he builds as the series goes on, and he's based in swinging 60s London, but he gets hired by like the London police or other government agencies hire him to go solve crimes or to do dirty work for him and stuff. But the whole thing is Bradford's. It's weird. It's kind of like. The show itself is kind of like The Avengers with a little bit of The Prisoner mixed in. It's got that vibe to it. But he plays it kind of like he's half James Dean and half Dirty Harry. You know, he's got this he's always being cool about everything. You know, he talks in like a whisper, like, you know, Clint Eastwood does. He's got the James Dean stare. He's always getting the shit beat out of him. It's just this wild... I don't know. I knew nothing about it when they sent it to me, and I was addicted to it straight through. Just, you know, all 15 episodes or whatever it was for the first series. Plus, it's got some great guest appearances by people. I was watching one series, and it's like the secretary for the bad guys. You know, who's the secretary? It's just this really good-looking woman who's like standing in the background. She says maybe two things, and she's wearing these mod, hip London clothes. And I'm like, how do I know her? It's Carol Cleveland from the Monty Python series. You know, and she's just she's like the window dressing in this series. Low-tech special effects, you know, but they kind of work, and it's kind of nostalgic, but it's also cool. I'm just having a ball watching it, so I would recommend digging that up. So that's mine.
So I think we're done. Right. And you know, it would be really great if we could get a review on iTunes from someone. Anybody out there listening?
Was this available on iTunes? I didn't.
Yeah, well, no, we're on iTunes. Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people know that.
I didn't.
We do have a couple of people that like rated us, so the rating actually helps. But a review would be fantastic if anybody out there wants to help us out with one of those. That would be great. So if you have any questions, send us an email. We're at postmoviepodcast@gmail.com, and we're also on Facebook. And you can listen to our shows online. We're at post-movie.net. And I can't think of anything else to say.
Well, how about thank you to Peg?
Thank you, Peg.
You're welcome.
I was going apart from the things that I couldn't think of to say, that was the one thing I thought of to say, but I was going to do that after I said I can't think of anything to say.
I'm always there for you.
You are, John. You are.
I'm skipping ahead of the line.
I'm very happy to be the first female film critic featured on the Post Movie Podcast.
And welcome to come back.
Yeah. We've come a long way, baby.
So until next
week. Did you
make
this a Virginia Slims commercial?
Yes.
Right.
We
Excellent.
do that every day.
So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everybody.